I will start by introducing Gauri Dikshit, ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you, ma'am, again to join us for the second season. I really thank you. Gauri Dikshit, when not busy in her office, is busy being a traveler, climbing mountains, walking on untrodden paths, capturing the voice of a solitary flower, blossoming from a rock, or the bird sitting on a hanging branch, sometimes the setting sun or the sea in her camera, as well as the words she weaves. Her poems speak in a voice which is simple, cold, and direct. That she has been a part of many anthologies as well as a Dual Prize awardee and has commendable mention at Destiny's Poet is incidental. In her first book, In My Skin, I Find Freedom, there are poems on varied subjects, yet there is a common thread of a skeptical questioning mind of a free woman. Thank you so much, Gauri, ma'am. We look forward to interacting with you and knowing more about you and your work.
Thank you.
We are really honored and happy to host Pragya ma'am, Dr. Pragya Vajpayee. She is a proud mother of two creative souls and artist, and is a faculty in the Department of English in the prestigious National Defense Academy, Ministry of Defense. She is a co-editor of the e-magazine Brahmand, Voice of the Cosmos, for creative writing. Her book, A Potpourri of Proverbs, is a collection of poems on English proverbs. She had explored a variety of themes like mythology, philosophy of life, human emotions, feminism, women empowerment, and various societal issues. She is widely published and anthologized. She is soon coming up with an anthology of poems for the Indian Armed Forces to commemorate the 75 years of independence. Indeed, I think there is a wide array of subjects that you have touched upon, and that is why I think we look forward to hearing from you. What is your perspective to culture and poetry?
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Sunil ma'am. Thank you, Sunil ma'am, for joining us for second season as well. Dr. Sunil Kaushal writes in English, Hindi, and her mother tongue, Punjabi. She is a gynecologist and rediscovered a passion for writing at the age of 70 when she started featuring her works online. Published in a number of national and international anthologies and magazines, some of her poems have also been translated into French, German, as well as Greek. Her poems have been featured in the Limca Book of Records as part of the Amravati Poetic Prism 2018. Her memoirs, Gypsy Wanderings and Random Reflections, have been awarded the Nissim Award by the Significant League for its its exquisite prose. These achievements are just to name a few. We are really honored to have you, Sunil ma'am, amongst us today. So I welcome all these prolific writers, and I cannot wait before starting a dialogue with all of them. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Sunil ma'am, you are on mute. Yeah. So I would like to start with Gauri ma'am. And there is, I won't have a sequence, but yes, just for the ease of understanding, I would just call out the name to whom the question is being addressed. How do you think, now when we're talking about culture and poetry, how do you think that culture has molded poetry over decades, and also the human consciousness along with time and along with the evolution of time, as well as the feelings and the culture, of course?
So thank you, and honored to be here again. So my inputs or my thoughts will come from whatever poetry I have read or I have written, Priyanka, because as you know, I am not a student of literature per se. So my answers would perhaps come in from the experiences of reading and writing. So definitely, there's a strong link between culture and poetry, and poets are part of the society, whether they like the societal norms or not, right? And their perception of culture seeps into what they write, even when they write against the norms or culture, or if they write as a skeptic. And there's a strange attraction towards culture as a poet. That's what I have also kind of felt, that whenever I write something, it comes in from my experiences or exposure to the culture. And these perceptions are not like 1 and 0. They're not in a computer language. meaning, they are somewhere in between, influenced by the poet's memories about events and poet's vision, the exposure to, multiple literature and things like that. So maybe, I'll read out a poem that I like. It is from Arun Kolatkar's collected poems in English, and it is called The Low Temple. Okay, and if you when you read it, you can see how poetry brings everything together, including, say, culture, the beliefs. Then there's a believer, then there is the non-believer, then there is the innocent and the skeptic, everything together. Okay, so let me read this out without much ado, because this is one of my favorite poems from his collection. It's called A Low Temple. A low temple keeps its gods in the dark. A low temple keeps its gods in the dark. You lend a matchbox to the priest. One by one, the gods come to light. One by one, the gods come to light. Amused bronze, smiling stone, unsurprised. For a moment, the length of a matchstick, gesture after gesture, revives and dies. Stance after lost stance is found, and lost again. Who was that, you ask? Who was that? The eight-armed goddess, the priest replies. A skeptic match cuffs. You can count. But she has 18, you protest. But she has 18, you protest. All the same, she is still an eight-armed goddess to the priest. You come out in the sun and light a charminar. Children play on the back of the 20-foot tortoise. So, this is how poetry is, right? It talks about culture in multitude of ways, multitude of perceptions. It is neither, against the culture or for the culture. It brings out a poet's perception about culture, and culture definitely influences poetry.
Very beautifully put. I think that was a beautiful start to our session. How wonderfully, when the poet is saying that the matchstick actually lights and brings the dark temple or the dark temple to life, we would say, and again going back to the dark and again coming back to light. And that is the perception of otherwise what is it like, bringing life to a stone or the bronze statues that you rightly mentioned. So very beautifully put, I think. In fact, culture is vivid and it's inseparable, or it's indispensable part in many writings, because we carry the belief systems, we carry say our visions, our prejudices with it. So going next, Sunil ma'am, if you would like to go next and have your take on the culture and how it molds a poet's mind or even the readers. Ma'am, you're on mute. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real honor being here on season 2 once again. Pleasure meeting you all. Okay, as far as culture is concerned, see, we are all born in a certain country and we are influenced by the culture there. The culture there would include, religion, caste, color, whatever our beliefs are, our music, our food, our dresses, our jewelry, everything is influencing us the whole time. And we are triggered by emotions and we want to express those emotions. So words are the only means by which we can express them, besides art forms. So it is very natural that we are all colored by the culture around us. We have teachers, we have peers, we have siblings, we have surroundings, neighbors. We have the influence of so many people on us. We respond to that again in emotions. So how does one express all that? It is in words. So words are the most reliable and the most sought after way of expressing one's emotions. And from times immemorial, our ancestors have been resorting to singing, chanting, and that was the way they expressed their emotions. But all that got lost over time. Going from mouth to mouth, things changed. And now that we have the written word, and especially now with technology, at the click of a mouse, you can access anything in the world. The culture has changed. And with that, the poetry has been influenced accordingly. Everything is more accessible now. And world circumstances have changed. Values have changed or degraded or upgraded, either way, both ways. So I feel that there is no segregation of culture and poetry. They are in sync. They have to be in sync the whole time. It is an essential part of life. So as long as there are humans, there is culture and there is going to be poetry. And for this, I'd like to recite a poem of mine just to exhibit the changes that have taken place. And these days I'm writing my part 2 of my memoirs, Gypsy Wanderings. And I tend to keep, because they are memoirs, I tend to keep going back into my childhood. And I've written something about my house, my home, where my parents brought us up initially in the initial stages. And this is about that house and how it has changed, that home. One second, give me a second. See, the younger generation is not familiar with that culture where I grew up. And I feel that reminding children of today or generations of today of past times, which were probably also better times in some ways, health-wise or bonding-wise, value-wise, those times were simpler and of much, much greater emotional satisfaction and bonding in the family, which has broken up sadly now. And that is also all right, because with the women working and with smaller homes, living in flats, it's not possible for everybody to have a joint family and carry on that responsibility. But I'd still like to recite from my childhood. So here goes. This poem is called Home. Actually, when I traveled to my grandparents' home a short while back, and I just had to touch things which my grandmother had used. And even the dust, on the pictures felt like it was from those times. And as I wiped the dust, those sepia pictures became those people for me who had lived and made it a home. And I'm a hoarder. I hoard memories. And that day, my memory took me by the hand and took me around that house. And it was a very, almost tear-jerking tenderness, that enveloped me. And we traveled into another time frame. But I will not talk of that time frame. I will talk of a later time frame, which was after my grandparents had died, and this was my parents' home. So home was Ram Nivas. I had earlier recited last year a poem on Ramgarh, Anam, my village. So this home is there in Ramgarh. Ram Nivas, a large white house in a small village, Ramgarh. At the entrance to the village is a ration and vegetable shop. This is today's Ramgarh. A bakery, a computer center, chemist cum compounder turned doctor. Mobile shops rub shoulders with a beauty parlor above all. The house itself, a landmark, stands out. The village is small. A large gate, high-ceilinged, thick-walled, safe, cool, spacious rooms, moonlit summer nights when Mogra and Raat Ki Rani bloom, hypnotic, intoxicating fragrance wafts all round, adding to the revelry. On the large terrace, Some 30 of us, 4 generations, paint a family tapestry. Elders, daughters, sons, grand and great-grandchildren too. When jokes, tales, and childhood pranks trigger guffaws and giggles, a plump granny hides a little one as seekers look for a clue. The large drawing room is listening to guzzles. The large drawing room is listening to guzzles played on the swanky new music system brought by a son gone abroad, till someone starts singing on the terrace. The family of singers, never tiring. Incidentally, I have a number of singers. My son, my nieces, everybody sings. Some sipping chilled, foaming beer in silver mugs, ice tinkling, wine or lemonade in rose-tinted crystal glasses with salted nuts, tikkas, or Russian salad, favorite family delights, making a million memories of innumerable such nights over meals of tandoori roti with mutton or chicken. Kacha pyaz mukki maar ke. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this.
Yes.
This is a Punjabi, I think, habit. They will put an onion on the leg of a string cord, charpai ke tang ke upar, and bash it with a fist, and it changes the flavor somehow. So that used to be a part of our dinner. Dal makhani loaded with fragrant ghee and cream to thicken. Dessert was usually Western. A caramelized blancmange, quivering and wobbling to the children's delight, picking up Granny's kurta, wiggling her jelly-like tummy. Oh, what a sight! Or the largest bowl of a colorful trifle pudding, 2 helpings of which were never enough. I kept the bowl in the end. Was a little selfish, I think. Some days, garnished with silver work, creamy kheer made the rounds, flavored with kishmish and almonds, slivered or ground. The moonbeams and stars embraced in romantic capers as the newlyweds glance at each other and the bride blushes. I wonder how many brides really blush today. Elders retire after being fed. The children also packed into bed. The rest of us drink, eat, sing, and create magic till the stars fade out. When I again visit home, that spangled dust, I clutch to my breast. Traditional, with ancient artifacts and memorabilia of 2 centuries gone past, that rub shoulders with technology and Western culture moving fast, curated by sons who left for other shores. Sorry, give me a minute, please. Sorry for that.
No worries.
I just clicked these phones. You click and you reach somewhere else, you reach another planet. Curated by sons who left for other shores, distant by many a mile. Look down from the walls now, where pictures of young and old smile. For weddings, or when I visit once a year, although a handful left behind, we get together and to rewind, relive old days, replay family movies, laugh and cry, marvel at how small the kids were, or how we've all changed. I sit on Daddy's bed and recall our last talk as of old. He had said, Help all the girls of the family be strong and bold. 2 days later, he left, and the roof blew off my head. Mummy joined him within a year, and I knew what being an orphan felt. The old walls come alive and whisper stories of days gone by. The giggles of little ones playing hide and seek in that maze of a house. Hiding is easy in that jantar mantar of 20 rooms where staircases abound. The kitchen calls out with spicy flavors floating around. Mummy must have left orders to the house to give its best. The table is laid with a pink rosewood dinner set. Crystalware finding a place at the table after ages. Glistens and shines. Delicious aromas from steaming bowls float and invite. A handful of us now try to recreate the old bonhomie, recall and remind of the principles of elders to the Gen Next by lighting candles to keep the flame aglow. And as the matriarch of a large family, I try to keep the bonding as far as possible I can go. Thank you so much for that. Sorry for my breakdown. I usually do that.
Ma'am, that was so beautiful and nostalgic. We could feel that aroma of food and children moving around and memories of past. Really beautiful, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Pragya.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that rendition, because as Pragya ma'am rightly said, we could picturize everything that you said. Your grandparents' home, your home, and such meticulous description of food, of the table. We could actually imagine all the staircases, the rounded staircases that used to be there in old houses, the 4 generations when they stick together, like when they have time together, from the grandparents to the parents, the newlyweds to the grandchildren, and then the youngsters going out for work, and the giggle of the children, the roaming around of the children there, and then suddenly after a lap of few years, everything is gone, and all that stays are the memories, and especially those lines, the walls telling us those stories, and the empty kitchen, but all that lays there now is the dinner set, but you can still feel the aroma as if it was just yesterday. So I think it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Thank you. Like you said, most of them wouldn't know what it meant to eat that way, to have the flavors of that, if I may say, very traditional flavors, very, very ethnic flavors. But I think thank you for getting that here and mentioning it. I'm sure it would relate to everyone here. So thank you so much. It was really beautifully put.
Thank you, Priyanka. That's lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So next program, I would like to have your take on it. How do you see the evolution of poetry with culture?
First of all, thank you for such a generous introduction and for having me here. And it's such a privilege, and I'm so honored to be here. And thanks to Neela ma'am also for introducing me to such a wonderful platform. So I have a slightly different take. I mean, I would like to slightly touch upon the historical aspect first to describe culture and poetry, the synergy between culture and poetry. And thereafter, I would like to read a few lines from my poem too. So basically, to begin with, I would say that culture is actually an umbrella term that encompasses everything, everything that the poetry by Sunil ma'am had already included. I mean, everything which includes behavior, the norms, the food, the jewelry, the way people talk, everything that is a part of human society. So the lifestyle, custom, everything becomes a part of culture. And culture and poetry, the synergy it has always been there. it is completely inseparable. And I would say the influence of culture on poetry, or vice versa, has been always there through over the decades and centuries, and it's a continuous process. And we see that, in the larger perspective, if we see that it has also influenced the human consciousness. And with the changing social, economic, and political scenario, culture has basically provided a lot of new ideas also, and new themes to poetry, and people have got a lot of inspiration from culture. And you cannot separate from a culture altogether. If I am an Indian, I cannot talk about somebody sitting in Europe, and I can't feel how their roads look like, how the people behave, what they eat, and so on and so forth. So it invariably comes up. So it is bound to be there, basically. So in the past, when we had, I mean, if you remember all the poetry, the epic poems, Valmiki's Ramayana, or maybe Vyasa's Mahabharata, they are the epic, and they're the reservoirs of Indian culture. So I just quoted that because that sets a touchstone of how an aesthetic and rhythmic quality of poetry should be. And it not only gives a huge perspective of life and people, their righteous life, their values, their beliefs, everything, but also it's a source of inspiration. It imparts so much knowledge. It has so much aesthetic value. So basically, poetry has always been there. And, it in the modern era, it just didn't jump from suddenly from nowhere. It came in a gradual, continuous process. Earlier, the poetry used to be classical, and it had such strict restrictions and limitations to it. And anybody breaking those norms were not considered to be appropriate. They were considered to be audacious, and they were not accepted, or maybe breaking the norms was not their way of, doing things. So later on, when, I mean, in the modern era, with the break of industrial revolution, the geographical explorations also increased, and thereafter the culture also started merging. There were a lot of cultural influence or impact on the poetry because of that, and which is why feminism is actually a result of that cultural change that happened. So we can see, I mean, nowadays people talk about feminism so much. In the modern poetry, it's replete with the ideas of how the people should live, and the rights of women, and so on and so forth. So earlier, the poetry used to be quite rigid. Now it's quite flexible. So it had a paradigm shift, a gradual, slow paradigm shift. From elite class, it used to be only meant for the elite. Now it has come to the common people also. So it also went to the subaltern, people who did not have access to knowledge, or maybe proper higher studies. They also understand poetry now. It is only because earlier it used to be only Sanskrit. Now it is also in the vernacular language. A lot of people have translated poetry to be able to reach out to the people who are deprived of it. Because the purpose of poetry is to convey a message. And if that message is not conveyed to the entire community, then I think the purpose is defeated. So it has to be considered that everybody is a part of the society. So everybody should get access to poetry also. And that is why we had so many wonderful poets, and we still revere them today. For example, Basawa, whose Doha are very famous. He is considered to be the father of Bhakti poetry, Bhakti movement, and he was the pioneer of Advaita philosophy. And Advaita philosophy was about non-dualism. Like body and soul, these are not two different things. It's one. And after listening to him, after reading his kind of poetry, his thoughts and his philosophical ideas, people in India also got inspired to bring out their views and their individual opinion through poetry. And that is how this movement, took so much impetus. And thereafter, other poets like Kabir, Nanak from North, and then Tukaram and Eknath from Maharashtra, and also Shankara from Assam. So many, Chaitanya from Bengal. all these poets, they came up later on, and everybody had their own beautiful style, and then they had their own uniqueness, they had their own human consciousness to be presented to the society. So we see that poetry had a nice paradigm, gradual paradigm shift, and people have taken it with that spirit, and they've also brought gradual changes. And without even you and me realizing, the poetry emerged in a completely different form. So it's like more of a human evolution. The poetry evolution also happened over the years. So the aesthetic value still remains, the purpose still remains, that there is pleasure in it, there is a certain level of appeal in it, everything is intact. Only thing is that now poetry is more of free. It's about your freedom of expression, something that sounds pleasant. It does not have to be rhythmic, or maybe it has to follow some iambic parameter or so on. But yes, definitely it's a testimony to culture with an element of pleasure in it. So, I mean, that was my take on it. And to substantiate that, I would like to read a poem, rather a portion of my poem, because it's quite a long one, and where I have talked about from the perspective of a millennial, and how just one person can change. I mean, it's a different, the poetry, the title also says yesterday and today. So it's like a contrast between the past and the present. So I would like to go on. It says, today, my consciousness has grown significantly. It knows a new language, new vocabulary. It's altogether a new voice, a whole new entity. I have come to terms with it, gelled with it, and befriended it, though not so quickly. Yesterday was made of inputs from customs, traditions, people, society, media, and an array of situations. Today, the structure of my mind differently functions. Today, it has entirely different idea, with new experiences and explorations, with what I choose to read, what I choose to reread, what I condemn, and what I contemplate, what gets into my system straight, what I choose to help me navigate through complexities of daunting fear, through maddening maze, through forbidden pathways. The maze was difficult to figure out in yesteryears. Now, the vision from the distance is so clear. Everything from absurd to austere, and that dispels the fear. The journey through the maze was intriguing to embark, though it was unfriendly, cold, empty, and moonlessly dark. So basically, here I have talked about how it becomes difficult to accept change, but also it remains with you in certain ways, in partial ways, and you cannot separate yourself. It's like a homogeneous whole. You become a whole because of your past, and your past comes down from your ancestors, and it comes down from generations to generations. We hear stories like Sunil ma'am just narrated a story. So every person contributes to who you are today. And your thought process is also influenced by that. So I have heard stories from my grandparents and their grandparents. So everything comes down to who I am today. So whatever I write, I cannot separate myself completely from the past. And that is how the culture influences poetry so much and so strongly that it is quite evident in everything that we write. So
True.
Thank you with that.
Thank you, Pragya ma'am, for sharing those insights with us. I think you rightly said, when we are a homogeneous mixture of and what we are today is because of the past. Because if you eliminate the past, you wouldn't exist. There is so much, and that's exactly true for poetry. And thank you for giving the angle to it, the historical significance to it, because I think that played a very vital role. Like, if you mentioned about the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, which were essentially the epics written in poetry form. And even if you see any ancient texts, they were basically, even Shakespeare's plays were actually written a lot in poetic form. And of course, it's difficult,
Yes.
like you said, that it's very difficult to comprehend. That is why they were simplified and then given to us readers, given to students to understand. and the liberalization which has been there. Like initially it was only, like you said, for the elite class, but now it's been accessible. And I think as a human being, as a reader, as an aware person, everybody, the access to poetry should be for everyone, and that's how it will grow, and that's how thoughts and emotions will reach out to people. So thank you for sharing those insights with us, and we look forward to having more angles to it and understanding how poetry impacts and continues to impact us and our consciousness. So moving to the next question, I would like to know from each one of you that poetry generally has been thought has been a very powerful medium to preach values, to create awareness. For example, in the Bhakti movement, a lot of poetry was centered around overcoming superstition or the caste system and understanding that we all are one. So how do you see the impact of poetry or the role of poetry when it comes to religion and tradition, and how it has influenced the communities in India? And if you may narrate a few lines related to this topic, we would really like to hear. So again, I would like to start with Gauri ma'am, who went in first.
Okay, thank you, Priyanka. So I believe that when poetry is used to preach, it is a kind of double-edged sword, because what happens is poetry can really be, memorable, and it can appeal to masses, as opposed to maybe something which is a very dry kind of prose, right? That people may not relate to it as quickly as they relate to poetry. And poetry becomes memorable as well. So poets actually have a responsibility to maybe say preach in a right way, or say things that are going to help people, because otherwise there's every possibility that the values are being misinterpreted and enforced upon people, those who are unwilling as well, especially when it comes to religion and culture. Because religion and culture, especially nowadays, and with so much of exposure to social media, has become a sensitive topic, right? So somebody writes something, somebody opposes it, and things get ugly very quickly. So it's a responsibility, and it's a double-edged sword. So for example, women have been always idolized as goddesses, right? Goddesses with 8 arms, playing different roles, being selfless, living for the others, playing all those roles with perfection. And the message that is passed on through songs, literature, poetry, movies, even the stotras, right? Devi Stotra and all of that. That is the expectation they are weighed with, and that is the expectation that they carry on their shoulders. Mothers are made into self-sacrificing goddesses by the traditional literature, right? Yeah. So that again, I would say that is a kind of preaching poetry, and then it tends to get too much for women, right? And some women think that they have to be those super women, whatever the case may be, they need to sacrifice themselves at the expense of others, right? So if I have to give examples of how it has been done, there have been so many, but I will rather read out a poem which is completely different, which is my poem, which is actually talks about it in a different way. So it's titled Less of a Woman. Less of a woman. I'm not exotic, nor am I neurotic. I do not have blue eyes. I do not have golden hair. Having some hair is enough at this point, I believe. I'm not 20, I'm not 30, not even 40, nor have I reached that point where wrinkles have become the certificates. Certificates of my struggles, of my character, of my endurance, of my wisdom, and I would feel good about the certificates. I hate cooking when I'm told to cook. Who burps the loudest is my favorite sport. I give a damn about Ram. I give a damn about Ram, for I have my own kingdom. My favorite god is the one who has no stories about his sexual prowess or being kind to women by sticking to just one. So my favorite god God is the one who has no stories about his sexual prowess or being kind to women by sticking to just one. And no, I do not have a favorite goddess just because I am a woman. I do not come from the parts of the world where women are taught witchcraft or tricks of being a superwoman. I do not come from the parts of the world where women are taught witchcraft or tricks of being a superwoman. I'm happy with my two arms. No more, please. As the wise men and women have always said, Lalaj buri bala hai. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Wonderful. I think you
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
you nailed it.
Thank you.
And it's somewhere all the girls, women here would resonate, because I would call it a modern poetry. Because as rightly said, we've been, when it comes to, thank you for getting out that angle there, that when we start preaching through poetry, I never thought that this could be an angle to it, that it could also negatively impact people to kind of utilize women into like, and being there. And that's something that has been there like ancient history. Even if you look at the traditions and the sacred texts, they always have talked about how a woman should be.
Yes.
And it's really tiring, like you said, that today I'm happy with the two arms. I want to be what I am, rather than to please people or win over minds. It just, because that becomes too tiring sometimes. So I thank you for getting this angle there. I really liked it, and I'm sure it resonated with a lot of women here. Right, I never thought it that this also could be. So thank you for getting that angle in, and we really enjoyed it. So moving on,
Thank
next
you.
I would like to have Sunil ma'am speak about this. And since Sunil ma'am also writes prolific poetry on women, and very effortlessly on it, do you also think that a tradition and culture, tradition or religion has had an impact? And if the evolution, how do you perceive it?
Say, I won't dwell on just the women part of it. I'd like to rather, I was born as Sikh, not practice Sikhism as such ritualistically. Actually, we have hardly any rituals in Sikhism. It's only now that people have changed things, It's become more of a social thing to celebrate certain ways, not how our gurus preached it. But since Guru Nanak Dev Ji, our first guru, was influenced by the Bhakti movement, which was a blend and amalgamation of Bhakti Hinduism and Sufi Islam. So, and he noticed the discrimination in caste and gender and all that. And the Bhakti movement was also working on these issues. But I'm going to speak only on Sikhism, though I grew up in Roman Catholic schools. I went to a Protestant college, and I married a Hindu, and I sit down anywhere and listen to qawwalis. कोई भी सड़क में भी कुछ होएगा, मजार होएगा किसी का, तो I will sit and listen to qawwalis there. But at this age, and I was daughter of an army officer, so I was exposed to many cultures, many religions throughout our life. But I turned out just a human being in the end. But I'm still influenced a lot by Guru Granth Sahib, by Sikhism, because I find Guru Granth Sahib, that is our holy book, the scripture, and it contains the teachings of all our 10 gurus, plus many saints, Sufis from all castes. This was what Guru Nanak worked for. He broke down caste barriers because he included the so-called lower caste preachers also, the saints, Kabir, and even, Bhakts who were considered lower caste. They were all included. Their teachings are all included in the Guru Granth Sahib. And he did take forward the teachings of the Bhakti movement, but not entirely the Bhakti movement. His teachings were stressing more on unity and truth and creativity of a personal God. He taught us to meditate on the name, the Naam, and to surrender to his will. So the God resides within you. That is what he has always stressed. And so we needed a guru to teach us these things, how to meditate, how to, surrender to his will, how to be reciting Nam. So for this, there was a language which had to be resorted to. And that is how the Guru Granth Sahib turned out to be one of the largest poetry books in the world. It is based on every rag, every season, every hour of the day, every emotion, every festival, come what may, right from conception of the human being to death. There is nothing about life or the world which is not covered in the Guru Granth Sahib. And it is all written in verse, in rags, according to the time of the day. So even the chanting of the hymns, which is called Shabad, Kirtan Shabad, and that is based on the time of the day. So it works on your chakras, or it works on your heart and mind centers, and it influences the way you think or the way you feel. So what Guru Nanak Dev Ji taught basically was that you don't have to leave life, you don't have to leave the world, you don't have to leave a family or go into a jungle and sit down and meditate. He always emphasized on hard work, which is called kirt in Punjabi, Gurmukhi. Then sharing with others, that is Vand Chakna, distribute whatever you have with the lesser privileged. And Nam Simran, which is again chanting of his name. And the biggest thing in Sikhism, which I admire a lot, is seva. The seva part, I think the world is familiar by now, the way Sikhs do seva. And that is where the langar, for example, when the langar is served, langar is the food served at the end of the prayers, and the congregation all sits in rows, irrespective of caste, status, anything. We will have very poor people sitting next to us. We will have so-called lower caste sitting within us, and they are all served equally. So this is a great, equalizer. In Sikhism, there is no caste barrier. We have 4 gates to the Golden Temple in Amritsar, which means people from all 4. Now, of course, there are many other branches also. But those days, there were 4 religions basically, and people from any caste can enter from any gate, and they are welcome. There is no discrimination for any religion. Muslims, Hindus, Jains, anybody is welcome there. And so Guru Nanak Dev also made some changes in the Sufi saints' teachings. Like Kabir used to condemn meat. But since Sikhs were a warrior caste, the culture was different. They had to resort to killing animals in the jungles, and that had to be their diet sometimes. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji never stressed upon leaving meat. Or like Bhakt Ravidas used to believe in a heaven. But according to Sikhism, the heaven lies in union with the one. That is Sikhism. And it was influenced by the Bhakti movement, but not formed out of it. Okay. And as far as other poetry in Punjab is concerned, we've had, fables and ballads and epics and folk tales and fairy tales. Like you will read from Amrita Pritam, you will read romantic poetry, Shiv Batalvi. These are poets who are renowned poets of today. But in ancient times also there were ballads like Hi Ranja and Sassi Punnu, and you will read all those romantic poetry. So as far as my religion, I won't say my religion, it is a religion, but I resort to it. And just like I resort to the Bible also sometimes. In times when I need spiritual guidance, I resort to all those things I have been exposed to during this long life. And I'd like to recite a poem about the day I met my soul. I write this for those who have met their soul, or for they will identify with this. In fact, Gauri has read this poem of mine once online. And for those who haven't, but may want to touch theirs, I recite this poem for them, The Day I Met My Soul. Years ago, walking on the razor's edge, serving for the self, I came across a sage, wrinkled, wizened, and wise, in meditational silence. I could only talk to his eyes and read his, not ever having met silence, hesitantly looked up to find his piercing glance enter me through orbits, dilated pupils, transfixed in awe and wonder. My vision traveled through a pitch dark black tunnel. Incidentally, this has actually happened to me. I was in one of my spiritual retreats and I met a sant, a sadhu, who was also attending, and he was in silence. So all he did was gaze into my eyes, and this is actually a real life experience of mine. My vision traveled through a pitch dark black tunnel as I looked into his eyes. An empty space widening outwards towards a lit opening with nothing beyond. I melted into nothingness and was no more, one with the one that was nothing, everything infinite, yet shunya. I could not fathom how far the wheel traveled into shunya. Mine, yours, ours, that one. But I meet it daily in the mirror. So that is my take on spirituality and religion. And this is what I have learned from the religion I was born into, plus inputs from all other religions. So the Bhakti movement or any other movement keeps influencing us, I think, in various ways.
Very true. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for that. I think it's kind of mesmerized us all, and like you rightly said,
poem.
Very, very soulful, indeed. And like you said, I hope we all can traverse that path of finding ourselves, or at least attempt to reaching out to the soul, because with all the sound around us and with all the digital gizmos that we can call ourselves, that we're put into, especially after the lockdown, and we are all into just our screens, I think we really need to declutter and go to the soul. So thank you for giving that reminder. And yes, our culture, that's right, like especially the religious texts that we have, they kind of, like you rightly said, from life to death, and for any problem it has a solution. Yes. So it's all about, when we are even progressing, it's very important to detrack and get back to the roots. And that is something ma'am has rightly put in. And I think we all should at least try or start our journey. And hopefully this can be a triggering point. This can be a point where we can start and find our roots. And maybe, like you said, meet ourselves.
Thank you, Priyanka, for summing it up so beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you. So going to Pragya, ma'am, we would like to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so Priyanka, yeah, would you like to say something?
No, we would like to, since you also are have written about mythology, about philosophy. So I think you definitely have a take on how you perceive influence of culture, and you can extend it to mythology as well.
At the first place, I would say that, culture, religion, all these things are not separate. And as ma'am had rightly said, the poem, the way it was depicted, it actually touched upon the aspect that religion is not a single person's entity. I mean, it's for everyone. It's basically for the teaching of the right way of following life. I think it's all about lifestyle, and that is why, be it Bible, or be it Guru Granth, or be it Gita, it could be any spiritual text. It has to only help you understand the right path and follow it in a very righteous manner. So basically, religion is more of a spiritual path, and we don't have to follow certain rituals to be to prove that we are religious. And I think we all have that, at least in India, we have complete freedom to follow a religion or the way we want to. So I have always been a very religious person, but I don't believe in rituals because I feel very closely connected to nature because I stay in NDA campus and it's all green over here. So the verdancy attracts me so much that I cannot even fathom spoiling it or looking at people who spoil it or who ruin it. So with all due respect to religion, I love Durga Puja, I love Ganesh Chaturthi, the kind of vibes that I get, I definitely enjoy, and it makes me feel so strong. But the only thing is, whenever it comes to putting my views on religion or spiritualism, I would always take a stand in favor of nature because God has created all of us. God, it is, the earth belongs to God. It is his creation, and we are nobody to take that right to ruin it. And it's basically equally for the animals also. And if we ruin it for our selfish interest, it is not right. So being a Hindu, with all due respect to all the religions, I still have written something which is not in favor of spoiling the nature in any form. So it is our responsibility to protect nature. And my poetry is basically to convey the message to people. And that is why I would like to touch upon this particular aspect where I have talked about from the perspective of idols, be it Ganpati idol, be it Durga idol, after Visarjan, the way they are left and they are abandoned, and we call it Visarjan with all due respect, but then ultimately the sight after that is not bearable to me. At least it really hurts me, it pinches me somewhere, and I feel that as an individual, if I can't do anything, at least I can write a poem and spread a message. So that is how, I mean, for me, spiritualism is just connecting to God in whichever way you want to, and in a place that you want to. So just close your eyes, connect to God, do good deeds. I mean, why follow rituals to be able to prove it? I mean, that's how I think. So in the poem that I have written, the title says Plight of Idols. And during my launch, I still remember Sadbir ma'am also appreciated this poem, and she encouraged me to carry it forward, and she understood the spirit so well. So I would like to mention about her, and if she's listening, I mean, she would be happy that I also chose to mention this poem. So I'll just take a few lines. It says, now let us just imagine that Ganpati idol is being brought with all the pomp and show, with all the fanfare, and with all the grandeur. And let us perceive that. And with that, let me just continue with it. So I'm just cutting short the first two stanzas of the welcome. So the welcome ceremony, the fanfare, and the extent of dramatic grandeur attacks my self-esteem. So it is the idol who is speaking. So it's a monologue of an idol. It attacks my self-esteem, and every revolution of the earth, I feel the same. Nobody cares for the bleeding soul and the tears not shown. The vandals of nature freely roam and they thrive beyond control. So basically, everybody does that. They bring Ganpati with all fanfare, but after the Visarjan, nobody cares about it. So it's like their soul bleeds when all this Visarjan happens. And then they say, the Ganpati says, a plethora of unspoken implications. It amputates and alienates the adorned clay idols. Once the prayers are said and blessings are taken, I am doomed, I am forsaken. The entrails and flesh of the discarded idols, like shipwrecks, are pelted all across the shore. Like symmetry of unburied bodies scribbling their own epitaphs that will never be cared for. Forgiving slayers. Now the God is forgiving them for not caring about them after the prayers are taken and the rituals are done. Forgiving slayers and distantly consoling each other. So the idols are consoling each other. Okay, it's okay. Let us forgive them. They are innocent human beings. Distantly consoling each other, and the relics mourn the dying conscience of men in stark daylight. The cost of rituals is pretty high. So the poem doesn't end, but I'll stop my lines here because my idea was just to convey how I convey my message through my poetry. And for me, religion is all in the heart, deep within, just a way of, or a medium of connecting to the Almighty. And for that, I think I don't need any ritual. I think God will also forgive me for not bringing Ganpati every year, because I have a brass idol which I polish and I pray, and then I happily let him stay there for 1 year until next year I again adorn and decorate. So that's how my take is.
Beautiful.
Wonderful thought as well.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice. And thank you for putting a poem. I think it's an issue which is spoken about every year. It's been there. And but thankfully, I am happy to see that a lot of people are now becoming environmentally conscious, and they are like at least having eco-friendly idols, or shadow idols that we call. And that's been propagated. I mean, the message is propagated, and we can see a lot of difference as compared to. So yes, there is a change, but there is a long way to go to it. I actually remember one particular saying. I mean, in my we also had a issue wherein I was editing a magazine for this eco-friendly Ganeshotsav, and we tried to talk to our employees as to how they are celebrating an eco-friendly Ganeshotsav, because that was a recent issue for us. So one of my colleagues said that Bhagwan to bhav ke bhuke hote hai. So in their tradition also, especially I think in North India, it's where they do not have this the mud idol, but they actually have something which is already there in their temple. They worship that, and they have that the same thing, like you said, like a brass idol. So similarly, she had a marble idol, and she used to carry that idol everywhere that she went. So
Yes.
that kind of really touched me, that devotion can also be in so many forms, and that's exactly bhav ke bhuke hai. So why with all the fanfare and all? And really, it was a good idea to put the plight in a poem and to have it like personify those feelings from Ganpati. So I think it's a beautiful way of connecting, and this would relate to people more rather than just telling them a message flat. So thank you, Pragya, for bringing that angle in. I really enjoyed the poem.
Thank you. Thank you for summing it up.
Yeah. Now, speaking about like you all write extensively on, I think feminism is something which is very common to everyone out here, and you have your own take. So in my next question, I would like to know that how, as a poet and as a writer yourself, how do you perceive the influence of culture on poetry, and what strong points do you normally emphasize on your poetry? And if you can recite them as well, but what are the stronger points that you like to emphasize on your poetry, and what is that one message, or what is it that you really want to tell the audience? So if we would like to start with again Gauri ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So I still remember many of the poems that I learned as a part of my curriculum in school. A lot of Marathi poems, different from different time, different genres, then different subjects. They did form some early ideas of what is right, what is wrong, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable behavior. And as a child, one cannot make out the subtleties of the poetry, right? There's always that one moral or one message that you take away. Thankfully, after that comes the non-compliant phase as well, the teenage, right? Where you kind of try and go out of what you have learned, or try and read more, where I read a lot of Marathi literature, including poetry, which is outside the curriculum, that exposed me to feminism, atheism, books that challenge the ideas about gods, politics, patriarchy, gender roles, and then the books that wrote about taboo subjects such as abuse or child abuse and all, right? That kind of shaped my thoughts eventually, and also my understanding of the culture as well. Now, coming to my writing, I am a skeptic, and there's a lot of sarcasm in what I write, the way I write it. Predominantly write, I would say, I wouldn't call it a feminist poetry, but poetry that comes from my experience as a woman working in the corporate world, as a woman who has been a mother and a wife and whatnot, right? And also a lot of poetry about nature, given that I love to travel. So these are a few things that I have written, and I have always written very short poetry. Call me lazy or whatever, but I always tend to write very short poetry. So I would like to read 2 or 3 very short poems from my collection, which kind of bring out the different colors of how I write. So there's this one very short 2-liner. It is you create gods and monsters are byproducts. So you create gods and monsters are byproducts. Then this one is a little different from what I usually write. It is called Serenity. Ask Serenity when she breaks down, how does it feel to be pieces? Do any of them frown? Ask Serenity when she breaks down, how does it feel to be pieces? Do any of them frown? Slipping on the slippery slope, dragged through the rubble of miles. Slipping on the slippery slope, dragged through the rubble for miles. How does she manage to cope, making each piece smile?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you. And then the last one is again about gender roles. So this is kind of written in a more a sarcastic or a satiric kind of. In my mind, he resides. In my mind, he resides throwing tantrums with his growing pride. He is no stranger. He is no stranger, but a part of me, a bit of a man in my womanhood roaming free. A bit of a man in my womanhood roaming free. Brevity is his way. He abhors too many details. He knows what he wants, so no monsoon sails. On a Sunday afternoon, he prefers to nap, but he will venture out for a beer by the tap. He finds daily soaps boring. A suspense thriller has his interest soaring. I let him have his way. I let him have his way every once in a while. After all, he's a man. He loves to be spoiled.
What a wonderful take. I mean, this is really nice. Something which I really appreciate.
And thank you.
I love that line. After all, he is a man.
And a bit of man in me. I mean, look at that.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Lovely satire.
And like you said, the Gauri ma'am, I think, I think brevity is a virtue of poems, and you should continue doing that, because maybe it's only with the few words that you really you nail it. I think that's how I can sum it up. Really beautifully said. Really beautifully said. That's all
Not
I
everyone
can say.
has that.
No.
Not everyone has that element of putting it precisely and conveying so much in few words.
She writes beautiful haiku also, you know.
Yeah, haiku is so wonderful. We need a higher level to reach, to be able to write like that.
I tried dabbling in it for 2-3 years under, Kala Ramesh's guidance. But then I gave it up because I am prone to writing length. I've lived for so long, I got to write a lot.
I think very true. I can identify with it. There is so much to write.
I have long tales to tell. They never finish.
But we always have, as you always say, that every poem has its own reader. its own readership.
Yes.
True, true.
Yeah.
Even I like to write and I love to read lengthy poems. So, I mean, Gauri ma'am has really nailed it, but it's an art. I still need to learn it.
ये अभी जवान है ना, she has less to say. मैं इतनी बुढ़ी हो गई हूँ, I have so much to say. So I'm quickly vomiting it.
It is because she has that bit of man in her, probably. So
No, I have a bit of many men in me.
and I'm following your footsteps, ma'am.
Father,
Sunil ji-
husband, extended family, sons, their sons, grandchildren, बहुत सारे हैं.
Yeah, and young तो आप सबसे ज्यादा है हम में से. So,
हंसने में young
Absolutely.
लगती हूँ. असली रूप में देखा करो, minus the lipstick and bindi.
Ma'am, that doesn't matter. The soul has to be young.
yes.
I feel young, frankly. I mean,
Yes.
I don't feel my age. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just a little slow.
Not at all.
No, I prefer to stay behind time. I prefer to stay young. I don't
So
want to
nice.
go ahead in time.
Right.
That was beautiful.
Oh, I like the casual talks that go on, because that brings it a lot of vigor and fun, and I'm
Liveliness.
sure all the listeners are enjoying our candid talks as well. So moving ahead, as we I think Pragya ma'am, you would like to add on to what you think will be relevant coming to contemporary times now. Coming to contemporary times, when we say poetry, it is thought as the oldest form of literature, and we have spoken about coming from history to what it is today. So do you think that in the contemporary age that there is a relevance of poetry? And if yes, what are the topics you think will resonate more with the youth today? And do you think poetry still strikes a chord with the modern culture?
Yeah. I think I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay, so basically, I mean, I would like to begin with my poetry first, and then I would like to encapsulate my views on it. When it comes to modern poetry, I feel personally, just a second, I think my battery is going down, so I need to connect. Yeah. So modern poetry is basically something which is entirely different from romantic poetry or anything, because it has its own flavor, it has its own freedom of expression, and that is why it brings so many modern issues, and people feel that they have all the time and energy and views to share. And that is why I feel a lot of modern generation and youth are into poetry of free verse. There is so much creativity and imagination, and there is so much to say that they resort to it. So I would like to begin with my poem, and I think that would be self-explanatory when it comes to modern poetry. So the title says, "Be careful." So it's again a satirical way of conveying the modern scenario. So I have kind of questioned the education system, and with regard to women, when children are growing up, when the girls grow up, parents have certain limitations, and this is about questioning those limitations. So here it goes. Be careful. In a new place, be careful. With new people, be careful, and be extra careful. This is what normally parents tell. Hammer it well and remember that forever. It builds up so much pressure, but no one cares to put two and two together. Fear, she hides and suffers inside. Using common tricks, they just say things like, "Char log kya kahenge?" Stifle your laugh, you shameless girl. You don't realize it now. Be careful. You'll know at my age, at your turn. Now, this is what the parents say. The words like these are told so many times that it begins to feel awful. It feels nauseating. Can someone please explain what it means? Can someone please elaborate properly how to educate? If it is so important to be careful, then why is it not taught in school? Is it more embarrassing than teaching reproductive system? Or is it less important than the cliched topics in moral science, which no one cares a damn. And the responsibility lies on the individual parents to make them learn the code of safety conduct in the coded language taught at a tender age, like passing a legacy to next generation, like a relay race to safe adulthood, without ensuring if it is understood, without novelty in teaching a lesson that can change the entire situation. And the half-baked child grows up, bears the brunt as a guilt-ridden adult. What are those inhibitions? That it has never been a part of formal education? Unfortunately, the most important lesson of moral science remains incomplete. Unfortunately, there is no test to ensure pass or fail, and there is no second chance in life's toughest game, straight from gully cricket to World Cup. And she is bold, and the nation moans forever. And they say, be careful. Thank you.
Very touching, very touching. True.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very true for every woman.
Very true.
So basically, ma'am, this is about, art for art's sake. Normally, poetry is written for the sake of pleasure, for creating some, sensation, some appeal, to bring out creativity. So again, as Gauri ma'am also said, that even I'm skeptical about things like her. And even I like to use poetry as a medium to convey certain skeptical aspects of my life. Wherever I feel like questioning, I put down in the form of writing. So basically nowadays, people are more focused on fresh ideas and original kind of metaphors. The modern scenario, I mean, the modern culture demands modern ideas, modern metaphors, which people can connect with. And it carries certain strong emotions and strong messages. I think we all would agree to so many channels that have come up on YouTube, where a lot of youngsters come, narrate a poem. Their rendition is so powerful with a nice music in the backdrop. They say something which is real, something that demonstrates their stream of consciousness, their psychology, their current state of mind, things that are relevant in today's world, in the modern world, without having any kind of inhibitions whatsoever. So it is replete with metaphors, and it actually hits hard on the people who need to be hit hard. So basically, people enjoy it, but the right people understand the message. So nowadays, the feminists, because of that rise in feminism, a lot of girls have come up with such beautiful romantic as well as strong poetry that even men wouldn't deny. It is so pleasing to the ears, and yet they cannot say that it is not acceptable. So it is about questioning the values, the cultural norms, and it is about the, neglecting the past, neglecting the restricted norms. It is more about unexpected and unpredictable ideas of the modern world, about the social changes that the society has undergone, and about ambiguity, about the multiple meanings of their words, because they have so much to say. So they prefer to use the words that can convey things as per the understanding of different class and different people, different gender. So I think modern poetry is completely something that involves freedom of expression. The right way to say that India is free is because the people are free. The modern generation is free to convey their thoughts. So I think that was all about modern poetry, and I have written a few like that. Again, that anger and angst comes out when it comes to, expression of a stream of consciousness.
Thank you, Pragya ma'am. I think you put it well when you said that we currently, I would say the current generation is losing inhibitions, and new metaphors, modern metaphors, as you rightly said, are now trending and they are kind of hitting hard. So do you, now taking lead from here, I would like to go to Sunil ma'am. Do you think, I mean, these kind of poetries or these that resonate with young audience, they are the right way to convey? And how do you see the influence? And going forward, is this going to be the evolution, or do you also think that, to put it subtly, is the right way of saying out your thoughts? What is your take on modern poetry or open mics that happen very often, like Pragya ma'am said?
See, as far as the power of words is concerned, it is undeniable. The power of words is there to stay forever, whether we are recording the past or the present, or we are envisioning the future. And you see, the writings of the writers outlived their lives. The writers have died. How do we, connect with them? Through their writings. So what was once, what is today, the past was the present one day. That was the modern thing then. So we have to straddle both worlds. We cannot change things, and they do not change. We still go back to appreciating Amrita Pritam. She was a revolutionary poet. Mahadevi Verma, during her days, wrote such things.
Absolutely.
Then look at other poets, you see, when you go back, Sahir Ludhianvi, look at him. They wrote revolutionary poems. And we do not think of them as backward. During their days, they were very, very modern. They were very revolutionary. They broke all norms. And we all still identify with that. So I think breaking it up into contemporary and, old literature or ancient literature is not really a viable term. I don't feel. I don't agree with that. I feel we have to resort to both worlds, and we keep doing it. I see children, what are these retro music? Why are they going back to old songs? They're all singing old songs, youngsters. And so I feel they, as long as there are human beings, there will be emotions, there will be war, calamities, sufferings, victories, joys, births, deaths, everything. And as humans, we will want to celebrate it or mourn it. What other way than by writing or speaking or singing? Even crying is a form of, catharsis. Then even today's children, that word stress has become like a chant for them. Stress, stress, stress. Wherever you go, even a rickshawala once told me some years ago. I told him, "Bhaiya, jaldi karo, mujhe kahin pahunchna hai." "Arey, ma'am sahab, mere ko stress mat do, tension mat do," he says. I thought, good Lord, I don't know the word tension, and he knows what tension is. So, tension and stress has become a way of life, a way of breathing almost for everybody. And you need those stress busters. So there is confessional poetry also amongst the youngsters. There is romantic poetry. There are breakups. Every day there are breakups. There are so many breakups. It's like a doctor's medicine, TDS, thrice a day. So even the dates and the breakups are tedious today. So they need to resort to something. So it comes to slam and to rap and all those, modern forms of poetry. But I feel that the ordinary way of emoting will always be more popular than a certain niche. This will change. A slam will change, a rap will change. Things have changed over time. What is modern today is going to be ancient tomorrow. So we cannot think this is better or that was better or what will be better in the future. I feel just take from anywhere, whatever you like, and the youngsters still do it. The youngsters are writing, they're writing beautiful poetry. And the very fact that you have all these performances is proof that children are still resorting to poetry and enjoying it, and they modified it for themselves, which is fine. We did it during our times, our youth. Now, I didn't do it, but people who wrote those days did it. So it is fine, I think. And as far as stress busters or confessional poetry is concerned, I feel getting it all out is a very good method of catharsis. And I think every human being at some stage wants to do it. So I will read a poem from the woman's point of view. I don't want to be a stickler to any one gender, but I write a lot on women, about women, because during my practice, I came across thousands and thousands of women in 40 years of practice, and every patient was a story for me. Every family of every patient was a large story for me. I just absorbed them all like an emotional sponge, and then I had to pour them all out because they did influence me a lot, and I had to get it all out. So I'm writing about the many faces of Eve. The person that she is perhaps not the woman you would like her to be. Stereotyped in the patriarchal mold, enclosed in a box, suffocated, demeaned, humiliated. The ones who gave her birth considered her a burden too, given away, her value enhanced with dowry. In modern times, two more assets were added to this investment in relations: salary slab and education. The woman hardly mattered, the woman that she is. While your exploits are for sowing your wild oats, she is expected to walk on embers to prove her innocence and purity. For only on your orders is to awaken a woman's sexuality, as if she was born with none. Like Sita, every moment she undergoes trial by fire, as she salves your egoistic wounds, forgetting her own, the woman that she is. Like a wounded bird, wings clipped, she looks out between the bars of this caged captivity, blinded by the dust of time, age, and civility. Wiping grime from her eyes, she tries getting red her palms, and stars might change her destiny from the woman she is. One day, the stars kindly came down upon her, helping a seed sprout in the womb. Suddenly, the struggle to please your masochistic desires was over, your barbarism forced to relent its hold on her desire for freedom, as she decided to bear your child by choice and not a compulsion. In this mirage called marriage, the woman that she is. The sun thawed frozen feelings, cool breezes soothed tired limbs, heavy with child. The lilting notes of birds, buzzing of bees, and fragrance of flowers filled life with song and color. As she snapped the shackles of self-imposed solitude, but now gazing skywards, seeing only stars, became the woman that she is. You expected her to not have an opinion, idea, or even a thought of her own, but the fire in her heart, the dormant volcano waiting to erupt, pouring out as the lava of brave words, allows her not to keep her lips sealed, while in drunken stupor, you try to force kisses on her. You expect her to swallow humiliations and berating, while she is too large a pill for you to swallow, for it may cure you of your male chauvinism, the woman that she has become. Do you not realize that her fragrance of love and nurturing is far above your manipulations? Her perfume too heady to be confined within 4 narrow walls called home. Her talents meant for much more than domestic chores alone. When her body ages, your children she is rearing, her energy at low tide, the children she bore, needing her no longer, find her beneath their status and bearing. And you still expect a ravishing, beauteous, coy, sensuous woman in bed who can be less vicious as a whore, but in the morning should be virtuous and demure, on whom no man shall cast his eyes, while your own life is nothing but a web of lies, whose fire you wish to rekindle with your drunken bouts, knowing not that she is like water, soothing and cooling, the woman that she has become. How many roles is she expected to play? Set her free and see her soar. See how she touches all with choicest fragrances of love, caring, fulfillment, and joy in her own way, the woman that she is. She was born beautiful inside out, innocent and pure. Her sexuality like the Ganga, pure for sure. She has to love herself first, to give unconditional love. So please crush not her dreams and self-esteem with words of suppression, acts of oppression. She will now, instead of her head, use her heart, which is like an ocean of love, so she can have the strength to not surrender, so she can overcome social, cultural, religious, political, or morality-based dogmas, so she can burst the bubble of femininity, which no one wants to burst, so she can unleash her thoughts, so she can stand strong, so she can say right is right and wrong is wrong, because she is now the woman she has become.
Oh my God, this is so mesmerizing.
Thank you, Pragya.
It is so all-encompassing. I could feel all the stages of women, all the plights, every aspect of it.
See,
Very
we
strong.
feel as, I mean, the few of us here, we are privileged women. We are not the stereotype, prototype Indian woman. We are not.
We are not.
Either we have broken those shackles and become who we are, or we have not been through that. But the general Indian woman,
Yes.
the common housewife, or even the working women today, they go through hell in their personal lives. You hear these stories every day, all around you, even in our homes, even in our extended families, our neighbors, everywhere, in our offices. We'll find all this.
And unfortunately, it goes unacknowledged.
Yes.
And it goes neglected. Nobody even cares to understand that this actually happens.
This happens. This is happening now.
It is still there in the society.
At this moment, there will be millions of women going through this. At this precise second.
So only women can understand this.
We don't speak of it because we are scared. We are scared, we are suppressed. As a woman, there is much more that I would like to write. But I feel I have grown up children. They will be embarrassed by society, or they will be embarrassed reading their mother's poetry. There are times I curb myself from writing things which I want to. And I mean, not my fault. I was named Sunil, a man's name, those many years ago by my parents. So I became a rebel right from birth with my name. I have never been able to, stick into boxes or being stereotyped and all. I'm a free spirit. I do what I want to.
I think that is how women get evolved and they become empowered when they feel so. And when they love, as you said, when they have to love themselves first to be able to fulfill their dreams.
I was luckier. I had parents who were I think even those many years ago, they were 100 years ahead of Indian, thought. And we had no differences. In fact, my brothers had a tougher time growing up. I was brought up like a free spirit that I am. I was given all the liberties in the world, my sister also. We grew up on an equal par, in fact, on a better par than our brothers. My parents were stricter with the boys because boys tend to go a little off track and wild a little earlier.
That's true.
Women walk with the wolves a little later.
Absolutely. We are the luckier sect of the society. That's true. We are privileged.
And
So-
I think the poetry like this, perhaps, Sunilji, will also help decondition and condition the readers in a different way as well. Because all the women who face this and who are sometimes who don't speak or who are scared to speak also may be able to speak, but they're conditioned in such a way that they don't feel the need to speak. They sometimes feel that all this is natural and this is part of life, and
Yes.
that's what it is.
Yes, it's a tragedy that it's the mothers and the sisters or the extended family who even today, educated girls are being told by their female members of the family that this is what marriage is, whether it is right or wrong.
And you
whatever
have to adjust, and you have to adjust.
Yes,
Accept.
you have to adjust, but nobody is going to adjust.
And because we have also suffered like this, we have seen women like this, so you're no different. Your suffering is not a big deal.
No, I have myself been through a lot of problems as a younger person, and but I gave in sometimes, and I bent the rules when I wanted to. Being a doctor, I couldn't afford to be one of those ninny-winny crying housewives, not being able to speak up. Though I never was aggressive, but I had more subtle ways of working
Probably
around
you
the
were
problem.
always assertive. Rather, assertion is a better. It's not aggression, it's assertion, basically.
Yes, I basically went and did what I wanted to do.
Yes.
I lived a life of my choice.
That's empowered. That's empowered way of living.
My parents empowered me. I had very modern parents. Modern in the sense they were not modern in their lifestyles, but their thought process was
They're quite progressive.
Very progressive, very progressive. They used to say, we've taught you, we've educated you, we've taught you whatever we could by our being role models. Now you find your way in the world. I was very young when we were thrown into hostels and we were taught to travel alone and go to post offices and banks. As a young girl of 10 or 12, I could go to a bank and operate things for myself. So they made us very independent. So I didn't feel, overwhelmed by the world. I can walk into any place and come back a success. I always feel that confident that wherever I go, I will be a success. Whatever I do, I will win at it. It's an attitude of, it's an
they
attitude.
had your back and they knew that this is important.
And I wish I do it for my girls. I do it for all my girls in my family. I do this. And my father, before he died, 2 days before he died, and what I've written in that poem, help the girls of the family be strong and bold. He actually spoke these words to me 2 days before he died. And I guide all the girls in my family around me, my employees, my workers, everybody. I try to guide them this way.
I think that is why we become so empathetic and we are so understanding, because we have not gone through this and we feel for them. And we realize that how much it is important for them to be educated and to be empowered, to be able to fight for their own rights and their own suffering and stand up for their own thoughts and ideas and freedom. So I think that's very important. And educated women and empowered women can only do it.
So today's girls have to be bold enough to carry this forward, this forward, not retrogress from here.
Absolutely. Very well said.
So youngsters or old people, everybody needs to be themselves, I think, strong in themselves.
I think women should be assertive.
Thank you so much for putting those thoughts together, especially the last poem. I was speechless because we know the society that we live in, and we have seen it, we've heard it, it's kind of breaking, remolding, and then going ahead. And a lot of women do that. And like you rightly said, we need to break out of be bold enough. Like you rightly said, your father passed it on, and we need to pass it on to the generations and not say that adjust, but kind of be bold and be yourself. And that's something that we need to trigger in the generations and not ask them to adjust. I think that starts from home, and that should start early. now for those who are listening, and we are glad that women are talking about themselves and this wave of feminism, though it's not a very positive term, because a lot of disadvantage, a lot of things have been, feminism has been a very something which is taken very wrongly. The term sometimes it's overridden, it's taken in the other sense, it's not taken in the right sense, rather, I would say. But
Yes,
like you rightly said, being assertive,
yes.
Being assertive over being aggressive
Yes.
is what is needed. And I would say that is the message of the talk. And thank you all of you. Through poetry, we all experience that the power of poetry here in this 1.5 hours almost. The power of poetry, it kind of gives you nostalgia, it can evoke feelings in you, it can all the latent feelings, it can make that flow. It can and it has the power of subtly putting across the things, like you said, like ma'am said, even if it's embarrassment, even if it is something that the front person would not like to hear, but using metaphors and using a language. It's basically, poetry can be said as a medium or as a craft of using a language in such a way to convey your feelings, which otherwise cannot be put into prose, into paragraphs, into letters, but only poetry can do that. So thank you so much. It was lovely conversing with all of you. Gauri ma'am, Sunil ma'am, Pragya ma'am, thank you for this insightful talk. And now I would like to open the floor for questions. We have a few questions, and I would like the participants to unmute yourself, introduce, and ask the questions directly to our panelists. So I could see Suraj Raka, if he's here. I will read out the question so that everyone can, it's here for everyone. Is modern poetry really a freedom of expression or just a teaser to a particular part of society? Many slam poetries are so provoking to get ourselves into fear, sorrow, or loneliness. This can also be seen in the lyrics of the really famous songs. So that's the question: is modern poetry really a freedom of expression, or it is just a teaser to a particular part of society? Your take on it. And I think anyone can take up the question and go ahead.
So maybe I can, put my thoughts.
Sure.
So I think both Pragya and Sunilji touched upon confessional poetry, right? So during the slams, a lot of times we see that it is more of a confessional poetry, that the state of mind at a certain point in time, and there is somehow a kind of glamour attached to sadness, or that
romanticizing concepts, romanticizing these concepts, I think.
Sadness or breakups or things like that.
Yeah.
And that is where at times the slam poetry goes there, but I wouldn't say everything that is said in slam is that way. It is also the listeners or readers' discretion, right, in terms of reading the poem and understanding what they want from it, and taking what they need to take, or taking what they need not take from there. So that is where I would think that there are types of poetry. There are some poems which would be more romanticizing these kind of feelings, but as readers, as listeners, we need to educate ourselves. We need to make that discretion of what we take from a poem and what we do not, because it's a free art, so we cannot stop anybody from expressing what they want, really. That's my take, Priyanka.
Thank you so much. I think it's well said. Would any of you want to add to it?
I feel that any form of expression, be it slam or rap or performance poetry, whatever it is, it may be for creativity, it may be for expression, catharsis, it may be educational, it may be also, just philosophy. It may be ordinary people who are seeking entertainment or knowledge also. So because this has come into vogue lately, every youngster tends to identify with it. So they express it that way. And I feel there is nothing wrong in expressing it in the language they understand. There is no dearth of romantic poetry that people like us have written. And when we can express it in our language, why should the youngsters today not express it in the language they are able to? I'll read a short poem of mine, a romantic poem. I tend to write very short romantic poems. The romance is very short for me now. Wild Abandon. This is an old poem, incidentally. About 35 years ago, I wrote it. Wild Abandon. Today, as in days long gone by, my manicured garden bore forth white jasmines and tuberoses, their fragrance stirring unnamed desires in the hearts of strangers as I adorned them in my hair. But the insipid white of purity left me unstirred till you grazed your hand, plucking and tucking a wild rose instead, splashing red in the serene silvery moonlight to fire my love with untamed desires of forbidden passions when you crushed me to your breast, leaving me breathless as you mingled once again with the crowd. I think any girl infatuated or having a crush or going through an affair can identify with these feelings. And talking about breakups, there's another short poem I want to read. This is for all the youngsters out there going through the agony. I'm just identifying myself with their feelings. Your empty chair. Do you ever see me sitting alone there, the way I see you daily in your empty chair, slouching, relaxing, leaning back, long legs stretching, reaching where I sat, your hands working many a way, running often through that mop of hair. Did you ever see me sitting alone, catching sunbeams, chilled to the bone? The cold fingers of your absence freeze memories of the touch of your warm presence. As I yearn for days, now forever flown, have you ever known the pain I have known? So I think this should address the breakups too.
Yeah, very beautiful.
Thank you.
I would like to add to the point, which, I mean, the question that Suraj had put up. So he just mentioned that is it a freedom of expression or just a teaser to a particular part of society? I want to say that no poet deliberately wants to target any society. It is definitely a freedom of expression. And it is not everybody's way of expressing it that way. There are a lot of people, as ma'am said, that they may not want to express it. And somebody who wants to express, who knows the art of expression through poetry, I think that person would only indulge in writing their own mind. They would want to express anything that comes to their mind, anything that they have suffered or that has affected them. But that has no deliberate intention of targeting or hurting somebody's feelings, because poetry cannot hurt anybody. It only is meant to as a it is either a form of catharsis or it is meant to give pleasure. So, I mean, all three of us have recited poetry that is romantic, that is sarcastic, that is, I think, informative. It has so much variety. Everybody has their own flavor to it. And I don't think any of us did anything to hurt anybody. So we didn't target any part of the society. It was absolutely our take on society. And it's just that we know how to do it in our own particular ways and we are empowered. We did it, not to, target. So that has to be very clear.
True. Thank you so much. Now I would like to announce the winner. Like I had informed you yesterday that we had a small poetry contest when we announced the Lit Fest. So, Snehi, can we have the winner of the contest? And if she's here, I would request her to recite the poem. So, congratulations, Purnashri. You are the winner of the poetry contest and would be receiving a small token from AOTL. Is she here? Is Purnashri here?
She had joined, but I don't think she's here at the moment.
Okay, we can read the poem. I think what she's written. It's a good one. I would you can give the feedback. Snehi, if you can read it, or Shruti, anyone.
Yeah.
Okay, you're doing that, Shruti?
I think you can go ahead. I'm not that good with reciting.
Okay, so am I, but yeah. So it is like the tricolor raises high, marking the new beginning in the sky. Freeing from the manacles of struggle, never this land will again be under trouble. Valley of millions of struggles and sacrifice made our motherland again a paradise. Haunted dreams of huge hues and cries ended with immense love, smiles, and minds. The victory of Peace Parade aims to go in Hindustan.
Wow, such a beautiful poem.
Beautiful.
Purnashri, congratulations.
Full of hope. Congratulations, Purnashri.
I hope she could be here, and we will. I hope she sees the recording. Snehi, please put the message across that we missed her here, and it would be good to meet another poet.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you all. Actually, I would like to recite a small poem of mine. I mean, I have to. I kind of.
Pleasant surprise.
What a lovely surprise. Beautiful. I was waiting.
So I'm taking the chance. I'm actually snatching this chance because it's been like a really long time I've written anything good or recited. It's really been a long time because of my personal commitments. But since I have a platform, I'm snatching this opportunity.
If you remember, last year I asked you and you said next time I'll recite.
But I recited something. Last time also. But this is, I felt I picked up this poem from Story, like where I write for an online portal, and Sunita ma'am's old city and the old charm. So I had written something on those lines, seeing through the eyes of a grandmother or an elderly woman who has kind of revisited her childhood city, or you can say that it's transformed into a city that she doesn't identify with. So it goes like this: my old city. Are you the same old city, I wonder? The green grass that caressed my tiny feet now feels hard. Those open grounds we carelessly roamed in have disappeared in the towering inns. Are you the same old city, I wonder? In the meadows, I remember myself roll, but today my old age has taken a toll. The breeze then fluttered my hair. I think that was a different air. Are you the same old city, I wonder? Now when I see you through my cane, nothing appears sane. For gone are those days, and the then me. My city has got a new identity. So even I'm lazy writing long lines.
Beautiful,
but
beautiful.
That's another short one.
You've said so much in those few lines. Enough.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
Wonderful.
Very nice.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Keep writing, Priyanka. We would like to hear more from you.
Let me see if I have another poem, and if you are not tired of being on the slam.
No. Poetry never tires us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So here's another one: awaiting a storm. Like the untimely rain, like the uncalled guest, like the unknown meteor, you came in my life and my universe changed. My life soared like never before. The soul deprived of love forever had found its own refuge. The calm heart for once loved the turbulence inside. But tumultuous as was your arrival, so was your retreat. My world turned upside down like the wreckage after the storm. Now I try to find my being, collecting the pieces of the aftermath. My heart is still again, my life, a lone island, awaiting a storm yet again. Thank you.
Lovely. Very nice. Keep writing, keep reciting. Keep reciting also.
Yeah. I will.
Give us more of it.
Sure.
Beautiful expression.
Very nice, very nice.
Thank you so much. And thank you for giving me the opportunity. I could steal a few moments, and but it was lovely, and it was thoroughly. I mean, it was a treat listening to you all. I think we're going to cherish for everyone who is attended this session, whether or not someone who is keen on literature, or even if he or she is not very keen, but would definitely understand the emotions, because like music, poetry is something you can relate to very easily, is what I believe. So thank you so much, Gauri ma'am, Pragya ma'am, and Sunil ma'am, for joining us today. It was an enriching session, and we take away a lot of memories, and maybe we'll wait to see you again for the next season. But till then, please share your writings with us and give us the chance to relive and rejoice in your writings. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you,
Thank you all.
Thank you,
It was
Priyanka,
lovely
for
being
having
here.
us. Thank you.
I'm glad we could make this.
Team
Yeah.
AOTL, I thank all the team. Thank you. And Snehi, you're so cute.
Yeah.